Big hey now to everybody out there. What's up there, T-Shares? It's a great name. Great name. Find a little bit of music to play. Woo. Welcome. All right. How's everybody doing out there? I mean, it is a Saturday, Sunday, depending where you are. Tam, good to see you. Woo. All right. Let's take a look at a couple different things we got going on. All right. So I've been watching these emergency end stakes. And it ain't much to watch, Stephen. Ain't much to watch. Not a lot going on over here. Let's bring this guy up. So what I've been doing is looking at that big wad of T-shares that are supposed to end in 2930, and just watching to see what was out there. And so these were the original T-shares that were staked in that period of time. We're supposed to be coming out, and so you can see the distribution between October and April. So October 29 all the way through April. I included April, even though it tapers off a little bit. So 500,000 in October, 500,000 T-shares in November, 229 in December, 245 in January, 450 in February, 400,000 in March, and then just under 100,000 in April. That was originally what was coming out, and that was 2.4 million T-shares. Now we've lost about 100,000 of those, 200,000, I guess, total, almost 180,000 to be exact. So we've seen 712 of those stakes emerge the end stake. None yet this month, but we're not really seeing capitulation. But now we're at the same time, you can see the current distribution in green here on the right, what we expect to come out. So these are potentially the ones that I would expect to be emergency end staked, if such a thing is going to happen. Don't know. People can do what they want. So it is DeFi, but right now, if all of these were to emergency end stake, it would just be 8.5 billion that would come out, and half of that would go to the OA. Well, I shouldn't say that. The emergency end stake, the 8.5 billion, would go out to whoever owned those stakes. The penalties would be 33 billion. Half of that would go to the OA immediately, in the form of minted tokens. So it'd be a big minting event if that was to happen. And then the OA would get the grand share of the actual penalties in a one-day payout. We are above the 51% on average for progress on those stakes. And of course, if they are big payday stakes, which many of them are, you would lose that entire amount of big payday, and that's why there's such a difference between the 8 billion and the 33 billion. There are likely some in here that are not big payday. I don't think I put a filter on here where I could actually check that. Well, let's look and see. Yeah, I should do that, and then I could clip it on and off and show what the differences are between the big payday and non-big payday. But there you have it. We haven't seen any great capitulation. Of course, the prices aren't there, to see that. All right. Tim, I see you asking some questions in here. Giga said, someone put up a big sell wall on HEX. What does that mean? I hadn't seen that. Maybe there is something because somebody wants to get out. I guess that's what it would be. We can go. Is that on 9mm? It might be 9mm. We could actually go see how big that is, if it really is out there. And I see Jesse. Jesse, good to see you. let's go look and see. I just happen to know a guy who can go see what we have for hex pairs pretty quickly. Let's see what we got. In terms of liquidity out there in the hex pairs, I'm showing about 12 million in liquidity. Not all that is to value, of course. Not all of it's to value. But let's go ahead and turn my filters on. I'm just going to go look at the V3s and see if there's some big wad out there on V3. So there is on 9mm. Maybe this is the one you're referring to. We can go look at the pool. It's relatively new, it looks like. 9mm V3. 530,000 in hex. Let's take a look at that chart real quick. Let's see how long this has been in place and what's going on. So I went over to the chart on Deck Screener. We're on the day. So this pool's been around for a bit, right? So this is a 1-year-old pool, but that was added to. Let's see, I'm going to go to add and remove and just see what's happened here. So somebody did put 60 million pulse up about 2 hours ago, 60 million. And if we go down to see what 60 million looks like, so I don't have to do the math, that is $327,000 worth of hex. And so practically what it means is that, yeah, the price would move slowly up if it was to go up. So it's an opportunity for people to, maybe a big whale to go get a whole bunch of it at a pretty solid price, right? I mean, obviously it would push up through that, but I guess the question is just how tight of a range is that. So let's go look at 9mm and go see what we got for 9mm. Let's say Dex 9mm. Bro, got a whole bunch of things I'm doing. Yep, didn't get that. All right, hold on 1 second here. That's not what I want. Let's get this other window up. All right, here we go. All righty. Hey, T-Fin, good to see you. Be here or be nowhere. Mike, good to see you, and I'm doing pretty good. And of course, buy the dip. Buy the effing dip. All right, so for those who haven't seen this before, hopefully it's right. It'll come right up, otherwise I'll search for it. I'm looking at the 9mm site, and I'm just going to go to tokens. Should easily load the old hex, otherwise I'll have to search for it. Sometimes these things are so slow. I don't actually have an active wallet on this browser, so I'm not going to pull up real quickly, I guess. While that's loading, we'll go do some other stuff and see. But I'm curious about pulling the pair up to see if see what it looks like in terms of what the wall looks like. So to answer your question, with this $500,000 worth of liquidity that's underneath that pair or on that pair, if we were to go look at the chart, it would have to go through that range. So if it's a very tight range, and perhaps it is, you can see kind of these wicks. Let's go to the hour and see what that looks like. So we're not really seeing any push into that liquidity on this chart, but assuming it's right above or across, you would have to eat through that. It doesn't look like they probably haven't accumulated anything yet. It would have to eat through that wall in order for the HEX price to rise. So it could be a large player has decided they've had enough. They want to get out with whatever they can of their HEX. So that could be the answer. That could be the answer. All right, let's see. What other questions we got there? Yeah, crypto whale watchers. Yeah, I'm kind of like a little bit of R&B type stuff, music wise. So not exactly heavy music, but I can't take credit for it. Comes with the app. It's just one that I picked up. Addie, good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. It be Willie D. That's a mouthful. I was a staking connoisseur. I'm still a staking connoisseur. And now I have a lot more trouble convincing myself to do so as I ask. What drives others to buy HEX besides green candles, which have yet to be seen? Yeah, that's true, right? That's the dilemma that I have. I mean, you're coming down to, at this point, it's faith, right? Just simple faith, right? You're waiting for green candles. You believe it can happen. And there's no guarantees, right? So we have no idea what will happen. We have no idea, unfortunately. Though this chart does look... this chart does look pretty good, though, on the hour. It's good. If I look at the hour, it looks pretty good. So upward direction, right? If we go over to look at this on the daily, maybe not so good, right? A little tail here, possibly hit a bottom, looking at all the charts, very similar shapes between Pulse, PulseX, Inc. Everything's reacting in a similar fashion, not separate. My tracked volume that I track. Go to the tracked pairs I have here. This is just like a way that I do things. So yes, you see the old PDI. PDI still got $400,000 worth of value paired against it. Kind of crazy in the current circumstances. But looking at all the pairs that I'm currently tracking, I can go scroll down here to the bottom and see. Oh, I got to change my filters back because I went to V3. If I look at all the track volume that I have here, I'm seeing about 16 million, which is pretty low, right? For my track volume, it's about half of what I usually am seeing for volume. And every time we see it drop way low, like down towards the 10, 11 million mark, then typically what I'm seeing come out is some sort of FUD or FOMO. Something happens. And all of a sudden, we'll get a new announcement, and boom, up it goes, right? So we'll see what happens. Last time we had gotten down to like something around 11 million, we had the pump.tires come out, and suddenly we had all sorts of volume on chain. All right. Yeah, and BTFD was saying, "Hey, why stake? Protecting yourself from yourself." Yeah, guys. I mean, one of the big moves here that's occurred has been this whole reduction of rewards. The ability to earn. I mean, so now you got to be either doing validating to get the base, or you got to be in maybe the stable pool, though I haven't checked it recently to see what it's paying, but it was somewhere around 5-6%. I mean, you could still be in the farms, but and I haven't checked those either. But I mean, there is some rewards to be given, but it's not super high, right? And so that means that people are reverting, particularly in the HEX space. We can talk about that. They're kind of reverting back to holding their HEX liquid. And when you're holding something liquid and you get the feeling you want to do something, you just go do it. And then all of a sudden you look up and you just swapped a bunch of stuff out, So I know people are doing that. So it does protect you from trading, right? Because you can't get to it if it's all staked up. So yeah. Z Texican. Yeah, you're welcome for the content. I love HEX. Right? If nothing else, it's accumulating more HEX. Right? That's what's happening over time now. And then crypto whale watchers talking about the old 9mm. 9mm is pretty useful. I mean, listen, I use 9-inch too, right? But I use all the different tools that we have out there for different things. Again, this is not like the end all beat all of information. I only get the information that I get. But looking at what I do pull for the different dexes, most of the action's taking place on V1 and V2. So PulseX is the place. V2, surprisingly, PulseX is a greater portion of the volume at the lower volumes. But when you see the chain start to rock and roll, it's really going to be, it's usually V1 that's really pushing things. But we shall see what happens. And then 9mm is one of the dexes that gets the most other volume. Now, again, don't take this 600,000 as everything that's going on. That's just what I'm tracking for pools and whatnot. So it's not a complete picture, but I can use this to kind of get an idea, just how things are spread across the different dexes. It's important to note that each of these dexes, and to some extent even V1 and V2 on PulseX, they're their own islands, and somebody's got to, whether it's a bot or it's a person or an aggregator, somebody has to go do things, transactions, to kind of keep them all in sync. And a lot of people don't check; they just do whatever they're going to do wherever they want, and so you end up with some pretty interesting arbs between different dexes, right, that are out there. And even the Uniswap V2's out there, right? So that's out there floating around. All right. I got some requests to consolidate my information and get moving here. Let's see here. Archie, good to see you, and happy Saturday, happy Sunday. Yeah, T-Fin, good question. I mean, I know we've answered it in the past, but it's worth going over again. Yeah, just as the OA reduced the yield, could it just as easily increase it back to what it was in the future some point? Sure. I'll show you where it is if no action is taken other than the stakes end here in a moment. We'll go through that chart. But yeah, at any time, the OA could emerge the end stake. And it's limited risk for the OA to emerge the end stake. I wouldn't bank on it, right? Like, I'm not going to plan on that because I don't know what would happen for sure. But what we'll see is they could do it, and if they did it, well, who gets the emergency end stake penalties? Well, the OA does. Right. And so it's a very popular, I call it a conspiracy theory, because again, it's not something that, it's speculation. It's not something that anybody said is going to happen. And just like we shouldn't have banked on the idea that the OA wouldn't stake at some point, we can't bank on the idea that the OA will do anything, whether it'll emerge the end stake or not. But if it did emerge the end stake, very limited risk to the system because the OA will get the bulk of that. And then only the believers in HEX would benefit that have been staking. Right. And I don't know about you guys, it's hard to talk to anybody about staking right now. They're not interested, not getting a lot. So it's really, and I talked about this a bunch of times, and I'll bring it up again. We end up in this situation where, it's really a closed group of people that could benefit or would benefit from the staking, because virtually the only thing you can do is at this point is either earn very little reward for locking up, or trade. And I do believe that trading's gotten me wrecked a bunch of times. So yeah. So it just gives people the opportunity to either double down on their believing, or go try their hand at trading. And if they, they're going to be winners and losers on the trade, right? All right. So it'd be Willie D saying, yes, it's a belief. The belief that $50,000 buys will come every 10 minutes for 24 hours. Yeehaw, people. Yeah, people would know HEX real well once that happens, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's sad that that really people really do react to green candles more than anything else, right? They buy when things are green and they sell when it's red. I mean, I don't think that's just me. I think a lot of people do that. All right, let's take a look at our look-aheads for the T-Share rate. So you can see the T-Share rate look-aheads pretty flat, 30 days out, a little bit over the 41, a few hundred more HEX per T-Share 30 days out. Differences between the two different chains, 41,600, somewhere around that on the Ethereum side in 30 days, and 41,000, maybe call it 300 on the Pulse chain. So still relatively in sync. You go out 60 days, you can see we got a little bump that's going to happen in June. I mean, these aren't like huge numbers, right? So, I mean, a little bit of a bump where maybe over a day we're going to go from, on the Pulse chain, if this stake was to end, from 41.3 to almost 41.4, right? So it's not a huge change, and that is a reflection of the lower payout per T-share. A little bit further, 90 days, we should be in that 42 range on the Ethereum side, approaching it on the Pulse chain side, and then 120 days out, somewhere up in that 42 level. 50,000 would be a good mark for us to watch for. But it'll be cool quite a while before we get there. I think we're going to end out the year around 45-ish. And so that's where we'll be. And then we go all the way out to 27. You can see, maybe 45 end of 25, almost 50,000 end of 26. We got a good year, at least, before we get to that level. Now, that could change if we do see, some huge emergency end stakes, that type of stuff. And then we go out the end of 27. We'll be looking at somewhere around 54,000. So increases will still keep coming on the share rate up and to the right. We have some pivotal moments here. Maybe in November, we'll see that T-share rate again bump up a little bit. What might be a significant kind of an increase. Another big increase next November in 26. But then otherwise, just like standard operating procedure, right? Let's just keep going up and to the right. We go look at our all models. This is, I've taken off the Hopper multiple as well as the KSB TV to show this a little bit better. But you can see the share rates going up to the right over time and targeting out, all the way out here in 37, somewhere around that 80,000 level, 73 to 80,000 level. And it could be higher than that. Again, dependent on, what people do, but if they don't emergency end stake and OA doesn't emergency end stake, it's likely that these levels will be the kind of levels that we'll hit, which is about, you know, anywhere from 70 to 90% less than previous calculations that we had before the OA staked. And again, that's a reflection of the huge number of T-shares that have been created. All right. Yep, and definitely there are even more derivatives now too, right? So there's a couple little ones that have come out. The one I talked about recently was the actuator protocol, and that's where people are able to borrow against their HEX staking instances, their HSIs from Hedron ecosystem, and they can actually, create a token that's worth mint a token that's worth 1 HEX in the future, and it's backed by 1 HEX today, and so it's going to be worth 1 HEX in the future, and so it's kind of like a bond type of thing. That's a new derivative, and I've seen as well. I'm gonna do an update stream on that probably today or tomorrow. Let's see what else we got here. So we're still, so nothing's changed other than the fact of how fast the rates will increase. If I go look at the drawdowns, let's take a look and see what people have been doing for T-shares. I gotta bring this to a different number. Let's go back 1 week. Right, so we'll go back 1 week to the 29th to look at the two different chains. Just show you what's been happening. Again, this prospect of restaking is tough for people, right, that are unstaking. And so, in this time frame, we had 200 in the last week, 203,000 T-shares created, but 20,337 T-shares started in the last week, but 55,000 ended. And so that's a minus 63%. So that indicates to me that people are not restaking on the Ethereum side. They're getting their EHEX and doing whatever they're going to do with it. Now, part of that is that the rewards are low, so it's a little bit difficult to restake and get the same number of T-shares. But I think we look at the actual staking numbers; they're down a bit. On the Pulse chain side, we're seeing a difference of about half, 48%. 48.8%, and that just means that 100 T-shares come out, and only 50 new T-shares are being created, right? So about half as many. And again, that's good for the existing stakers, because long term, they'll just continue to win in terms of units. We'll look at the payouts here. I'd have to go do a different calc to actually come up with a whole bunch of different numbers, but we can see the number of T-shares up here in blue, and based on when they're supposed to expire and what that looks like and how they might come down to that 15 million level out here in 40-ish time frame. And then payouts right now projected at just around 1.5, slowly creeping up over time. So your APR will come up over time. So still a prospect, right? For being able to earn rewards, but just at a much slower level. And again, the speculation there is that, if people are doing a lot more buying of HEX and the price goes up, then you won't mind that it's only 1.5 per T-shirt, right? So it definitely is a setup for early believers, for sure, of HEX to have already gotten their rewards, and then for new believers to partake in getting the new units. This is But it's going to take years, right, for this to all work out. You know, I don't mean the prices won't go up this year or next year or anything like that. I'm just saying that it's a 15-year cycle. 15 years, you know, so it's going to be a while. We'll be watching this, and of course, continued development on Pulse Chain and maturing a Pulse Chain should provide us with more opportunities to see volatility in price both to the upside and down. I mean, just I don't know what the OA is going to do, or but I mean, just in the idea that somebody has out there that the OA is going to come in and buy millions and millions. Maybe it won't. I don't know. Maybe people will buy millions and millions. I don't know. But just the idea that you can speculate on that is what draws people in. And of course, they see the green candles. They'll do that as well. What else I got for you? You guys have any specific questions, drop them in the chat. We'll just look at these and then kind of wrap up here in a moment. Average stake length of open stakes, still about 9 years on both chains. Still about 9 years on both chains, but new stakes that are being created way down in the 2.9 level. 2.9 years, about 3 years. So we are getting, some differences there for sure. In terms of staking, it's really, again, it's got to be a belief thing. You got to really believe long term in the ideas behind HEX and the strategy in order to do the staking. So people are much more entertained by the idea of a double in price than they are with really low yields over a long time. And I think we'll see that happen. And if we go look at the T-shares, let's see, it's expiring. This is our EHEX and this is our PHEX. I'll let this load up. Take a moment here and see our T-shares. I'm doing some heavy calculations in the background. So on the EHEX, you can see, again, going from around 43 million down to 16 million in 2040. And very similar action taking place on the PHEX side. Right? So again, what people are kind of theorizing is, there's a bunch of OA stakes across these years, but they're kind of theorizing that at any time the OA could emerge the end stake and change this whole landscape again. And again, it wouldn't be something that would hurt the system per se. I mean, some people might interpret it that way, but it would just mean that the stakers who are in would have more HEX because the OA would lose some of its HEX. It would lose some of its HEX. I mean, I'd have to go get the actual counts, but I mean, the OA does have, did add a ton of new T-shares, right? So perhaps, just to give you an idea, only 10% of the actual T-shares are in people's hands other than the OA maybe. And so, you have a billion HEX paid out in penalties. $500 million goes immediately to the OA, and that would leave 500 million to be paid out, and 10% of 500 million, what, 50 million, and so it would be a 50 million payout to non-OA stakes, as an example. Just quick math. It's a very low percentage, and so that would be a way to redistribute to believers in HEX. And of course, if you're not staking, you're not going to get that. Joe Venuto, how are you? What happens to the projections if the OA chooses to do good accounting on ending stakes? Yeah, well, one thing or the other will happen. So when we get to the end of each of these stakes that'll be coming out, let's say we get to the end of an OA stake, just like we see every year when the OAs come up. I don't know what the OA will do, but what the OA has done in the past is nothing, right? And so, but that could change, right? Well, obviously we saw that, but people have good accounted those stakes in the past. And what the good accounting does is it just drops them out of circulation. So I am assuming with this gold chart that's up here at the top with the T-shares, I'm assuming that either these T-shares that expire each year are ended and they're pulled out of the pool, or good accounted, right? So this is what it would look like with that assumption, right? Because nobody's going to leave those in place. We would pull them out, and then that would increase the payouts for everybody else. But it's going to be kind of tiny, I think, whatever that is, because it's pretty well spread. If we go take a look at, just go drill down into this guy here and take a look at these. So you can see, going into next year in April, I think that's the right one. Let's say here, 26, 27. Let me do it a different way. Go down all the way down. You can pick out by eye the OA stakes, right? So this is 1,000 T-shares, 1,200 T-shares, 1,400, 1,600. Likely in the month of March, that's mostly the OA. Again, I didn't break them out, but you can just see how many will be coming out at that time, in that time frame, right? And so, yes, the 1,000 would make a difference. It's just not going to be like a windfall of any type. And then we don't know what the OA might do. They might turn around and, restake. Maybe that's the plan going forward. I don't know. But we can see that. You can see the ladder going all the way out into 35, and then boom, out here in 2040. Boom, booyah! So interesting. All right, what else do I want to show you guys? Let's just do counts real quick. We'll take a look at that before we did the payout versus the counts and how that's been going. I mean, that pretty much covers what's happening with the T-shares, but there's one other chart that I wanted to do. Oh, I might not have it on here. But here's this. All right, so this is the actual count of T-shares, and what we had been seeing before the OA came in and did the staking and ratcheted up the T-shares. So we can see that. If we go out to, let's see, let's do, I forget which day he did the staking. I'll go out to March 1st. Take a look at that real quick. Okay, so we see that. We could have just gone here, I guess, right, and see what date that is. That was the 17th. So let's look at the 18th on. Oh, I got my pulse chain thingy over there. Okay, so you can see this isn't a great chart. Sorry about that, guys. It's hard to see this. I have a hard line back here for the pulse chain fork, so it kind of screws it up. But anyways, you can just see that the T-shares are coming down. Boop, 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 boop. Bloop, 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 because people just aren't restaking, right? And so I think that'll continue to be the situation for a while. All right, that'll just continue to be the situation, and you can see it here, but it's hard to see it by eye, just coming down every day. So T-shares are evaporating, and they're getting more expensive. Oh, and Robbie, I aim to please. I aim to be the nerdy that you want to see. So that's all I got really on the old T-shares, unless there's any other questions and what's been happening. Things are going the way they're going. you know, people are going to participate or not. Let's look at Quattro Cinco stakes real quick and just see. Of course, we see the giant one here from the OA, but let's go to the 18th. And so we see that we had 287 T-shares in March that were non-OA that were put out, Quattro Cinco, and so far in April, 174. If we do this, let's do this. We'll open this up and go back to, let's go back 3/1/2024. I think I go back that far, right? And I'm just going to take out this February, just like get rid of it for a moment, just to show where this has been going. So this, we started last year, back in March, April, really talking about the Quattro Cinco opportunity that was out there. It was a little more complex of a situation now, right? And we did have some pretty strong Quattro Cinco, relatively strong. It's not strong in HEX terms, but strong in that we did have a rise in the number of T-shares that went out there, topping out in November. But for the non-OA users, you can just see it coming down. Bloop, 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 bloop. So less and less reason. I don't know how April will turn out, but less and less reason for people to be in Quattro Cinco. But remember, if you're not in, you're not exposed to all those potential rewards or that conjecture and speculation about the OA, about the penalties, etc. So I'm a firm believer in HEX, and so long term, and it is definitely a test now, right? It's a test, because you got to really believe that that the founder is benevolent, right, and not out to hurt HEX and only improve on and increase the glory of HEX, right? So, but I'm sure you're having some of the same conversations with people I am, and like, why would I stake? Is what the question is. All right. Yes, hit the likes and share. Archie likes the nerds. All right. Will HEX outperform Pulse and Pulse X? I think it will, Willie. But I guess I maintain exposure to everything so that I don't have to decide, right? It was kind of like the rule coming into Pulse chain is I just have, I have my exposure to everything, right? All the cores, because I really don't know which one will win. I could argue pretty strongly Pulse X ratio to Pulse just keeps going up, which means Pulse X is going to win over Pulse. In general, there's less availability of HEX on the market and smaller liquidity pool. So I kind of think that HEX can outperform, but there are a lot of people that have HEX, right? That are these stakers that haven't ended yet. And when their HEX comes out, if they're selling the price down, then yeah, you might not see it overperform. And so I really couldn't tell you which one's going to happen. Think it could? Will it? Don't know. It's going to depend on the actual people themselves. All right, T-Fin, with the OA having so much control of the system, and make no mistake, the OA has control of the system, right? It is rigged for battle. There's nobody going to do nothing. Yeah, some people, you're saying, in addition to its proven benevolence, I honestly assume the reason why the OA wouldn't do whatever it takes to maximize the gains for HEX believers yet. And that's what I mean about believing, right? Because even in your sentence, sentences there, right? There's some people who argue there's no proven benevolence, right? I'm not arguing that. I'm saying that there are people that do not believe there's any benevolence, right? And the only thing they really can point to is the chart, and then of course, the lack of rewards, right? And Robbie's saying, if you thought the OA is the greatest, richest bodyguard in the world, you might think differently. Yep. Yep, 100%. I don't have the chart to show you for this, but the OA is a protective device, and that's where the bodyguard piece comes in, right? It's a protective device. I mean, there's nobody's coming into HEX and messing with it, right? I mean, people as an individual, anyways, people can do what they're going to do and move in with herd mentality, etc. And it will, of course, affect the prices and whatnot. But yeah. Oh, RGS staking natively, we still have the possibility of the OA changing something to benefit stakers again, plus all the potential EES rewards. So it's still worth it, but not obvious, I suppose. Yeah, Archie, that's kind of what I'm saying. I mean, it's like the IQ test. You know, it's a litmus test, right? I mean, who but somebody who believes in Richard Hart is going to stake? All right, you can't point to anything as we're going into the future that's concrete, right? Can't point to anything. You can't be like, oh, look, you're going to, you know, before we could be like, oh, you're going to earn, you know, passive income, and here's the rates, but it's not that rate anymore, right? So it's very hard to make the argument. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be like, I would expect that fewer and fewer people will even be interested in this topic and my videos, for sure. Who wants to come watch a stream about something they're not interested in? And that is bullish AF. I consider it to be super bullish, because what it's going to mean is that fewer and fewer people will be interested in the staking, and so it's bullish for anybody who is staking, for sure. And Hopperman, good to see you. Good to see you. And Archie's saying, yeah, it makes my job difficult. In a way, maybe. In a way. Actually, my job is, what is my job? Well, I'm not giving financial advice. At least that's not my intent. I don't want anybody doing anything because I talk about it, but of course some people do. But so I'm just trying to show, you know, the information and what the numbers show, because this was something that interested me when I first got into HEX. Like, you know, so what does all this look like? I mean, just think about the things we didn't understand, you know, like, and no shade on anybody, but you know, the number of people that still think that they still think that you know, the big stakes are going to increase the T-Share rate. You know, and it's because it's some of it's not intuitive, and going and looking at the numbers, we can actually see what the calculations are. Probably one of the biggest things, Willie, that's really affected me has been, yeah, kind of questioning, you know, how much do I talk about other stuff? That's always been it's kind of like a challenge. You got to wear these different hats. I mean, I got my HEX hat. It's my biggest hat. Even my squirrel wears a hat. See, I'll show you right there. See, my squirrel's wearing a hat. So it's my biggest hat. But you know, I also have my pulse chain hat. You know, the cores, and then got every other hat out there, and I got to think of things differently. So most has been an interesting part of this whole thing too, because it's pump tires, right? And you know, there are people that are like, oh, don't talk about anything. You can only talk about HEX. But I don't see them talking about HEX, so I don't know who the hell has the right to really be telling you can't talk about anything else, because who's talking about HEX but me? You know, maybe other people mention it and whatnot, but I mean, dedicated to just talking about HEX, right? It's because there's lots of interest in other stuff, right? Shiny stuff. Robbie, let's see what you're saying here. Tickle me pink or purple. What happens if the OA emergency end stakes one day before? Pure spec, but fun thought. Yeah, they could do that. Yeah, well, emergency end stakes before the ending of their stake right at the end. It just cuts a little bit of the cream off the top and goes out as a penalty. It's not as impactful as earlier in the stake, I guess. Well, I guess it's not entirely true. I guess we'd have to do the calculations on each one of them to see what it would be, what it would turn out to be. But yeah, it's kind of a funny type of thing. It would really piss some people off. It would be fun, but it'd be pissing people off to start seeing the OA regularly emergency end staking and staking. Do you want to talk about some? So a lot of these protocols that people are building that recycle value and tokens, we see it in the tax token stuff. You see it in the Finvesta ecosystem. You see it in some of the other ecosystems. People actually do that, and so we've always talked about emergency end staking as evil and bad, right, for HEX, right? Even though people can do what they want. I mean, it's just depicted as a negative, right? But yeah, I mean, the OA could move. I don't know that this again, it's pure speculation. It could move to a point where, hey, maybe they just on some sort of schedule, the emergency end stake and restake. That's a recycling of the value, and a little bit of it gets paid out as rewards to people. So that could be a new thing, but we haven't seen it, so I wouldn't count on it. Archie's saying making my job difficult with charting. Yeah, it did screw up all my charts. It did screw up my charts. I had to fix a whole bunch of stuff mostly because I put different ranges and things on the charts so that they would show properly. Oh, this is a great finish, T-Fin. T-Fin for the finish. I respect all of the HEX talk and information you provide, being that it's almost a foreign concept. That is, yeah, it is. I strongly believe that all roads lead to HEX. I do as well. I think that it's poised. Don't know what'll happen. I mean, it will depend on people and their actions, but I think it's poised to be the collector, the heat sink, the store of value for Pulse Chain and beyond. And that's just my belief, right? We'll have to play out these next 15 years to see. Maybe it'll happen soon. I don't know. But all roads lead to HEX. And with that, my friends, I've got one more question here. And yeah, or just saying, hey, I miss seeing the payout per T-share gradually going up. I suppose it will be a lot slower rising. Yeah, it's going to go slow, unless we see this emergency end stakes, right? This is going to be very slow, 1.5 to 2 over time, and see it going up and to the right. And Addie saying, I agree, always referring to hearing about HEX, or always refreshing to hear about HEX. Yeah. Too many have forgotten where our beginnings were here. Yeah, and it always has been about HEX. It always will be about HEX. But that's the belief thing, right? Because I just said that. And you know how many people just had like a blinding flash in their brain if they heard that? Maybe not people listening to this, because you might be interested in HEX anyways because you're here. But just me saying that it's always about HEX, we're like, yeah, tell me another one, right? I mean, just like burning hate. And it's a powerful thing. The belief is HEX is always the way. We're gonna make it. I just wish it would be sooner, Addie. I'm like, I can say that. And Archie is saying belief is powerful, and I think belief in HEX is super powerful. All right, with that, friends, we will go ahead and close this out. You guys stay crispy out there, and back again with more stuff later. I'm going to do a follow-up stream on Actuator. I'll probably do that one offline and bring it up and just talk about my experience with the old Actuator. Willie's saying HEX to $1. Make the movement like PETA. Yeah. It'd be nice. It'd be nice to see HEX go to $1. I think it's possible. It's certainly possible. Old and creaky, Addy P. Old and creaky. All right, everybody. You guys have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next time. And like I said, stay crispy. 369 viewers.